Hello everyone, welcome to another video. This time again a gear review. We're going to talk about microphones. This one here, the Saramonic SR-MV7000 Multi-pattern condenser microphone. So for the last 6-7 weeks I've been trying to improve the audio of my tutorials, and hopefully you noticed an improvement. As a first step, what I wanted to do is getting a better microphone. So condenser microphone, wanted to get one of those for a long time because I thought it could improve the clarity of my audio recordings, and I think it did. What I also wanted to have is a USB option, so directly plugging it in, so I didn't require to have a separate mixer. So yeah, with the Saramonic, I think I've covered the base, so the foundation for good audio is now there. Then I also try to play around with the settings in Davinci Resolve, which is kind of difficult for me because I'm mostly a photo editor when it comes to editing, but not an audio editor. So I'm still learning there, and there's a lot room for improvement, but most improvement also could maybe come from this room. It's very echoey, a lot of reverb in the audio, and just putting something like this on the wall, it's like nothing. So I would really have to soundproof all the walls, I think, to get perfect audio here, but it's a rental, so I won't do that. What I did instead for the last video, just hanging a blanket behind me, so if I speak into the microphone, all the echo coming from this direction is, or not all, but a lot of it is filtered out already. So it's a cheap solution, which you can also do if you want to improve your audio, just using some blankets. Now, what I want to talk about now is first what's in the box. Then we're gonna have a listen to the audio, comparing it to the DJI mic, which I've been using in the past. So I think this one is great for outside, for vlogs. But here in the office setup, I felt it was not very good. So, I mean, it was good, but the clarity could have been better. So with this one, I get a lot more clarity right out of the gate and have to do less processing to the audio. Versus here, I usually had to pull a bit more on the equalizer settings. So in the box, you see here, this is the stand, which comes with the microphone. At first I was skeptical if it would pick up vibrations if I'm working here, but I have to say, for the way I'm working on this desk, it doesn't. So it's a very well-made stand. We have a pop filter here, and then the microphone. Also, here's a XLR cable, because this microphone is not just a USB microphone, so that's the easy option, and there are cables included, but you can also use it together with a mixer, and for this you have this XLR cable, and if you do that you can use it in a professional audio setup. You have much more options. So the limits, for example, if you use USB microphone on Windows here, I think 48,000 Hertz is the maximum sample rate you get. But yeah, if you use it with the XLR cable on some professional equipment, you can go up to, let me check, 192 kilohertz, so a much higher sample rate, but you really don't need it for typical voice recording, what I'm using it for. But for other setups, yeah, you might just want this, and you have the option. So not just USB, but also analog setup. Yeah, that's what's in the box. And now what we want to do is, I will now record, and I'm just gonna go through the specs as the recording, and then we can see how the audio compares. So I'll show you the audio from the Saramonic versus the DJI unprocessed, and then with some processing, because now I also don't have the blanket here. So I want to also show you a bit what I do in Davinci. And if you're an audio professional and you see what I do in Davinci and it's crap, yeah, just let me know in the comments, because I really try to improve. Okay, so yeah, let's just do that now. I quickly bring up OBS Studio so I can record, and here I just continue recording on the DJI as a backup recording, which I usually do, and then I sync it. Okay, what I forgot to mention, there are also some settings you can do directly here on the microphone, so you can quickly mute it. If you want, you have some gain settings. So I'm using plus 10 dB here. You also have plus 20 and plus 30 as an option, and 0 dB. Then you have a low cut filter, which I don't use, so I rather do this in post-processing. And then you can switch the pattern here. So you have 4 patterns, you have stereo, you have omnidirectional, so picking up in all directions. Then you have, how it's called, the bidirectional, so back and also into the directions. If you have a setting where you have 2 people in a conversation. And what I use is just the so-called cardioid, which captures audio in just one direction. And that's perfect for my setup here, because this way I don't pick up audio when I'm typing, or just a little bit. Okay, so now let's do the test. We start here the recording on OBS, and I'm gonna go through the specs of the Saramonic audio now. So it's a condenser microphone with 20 to 20,000 Hertz frequency response. It has different polar patterns, as I said, the cardioid, the omnidirectional, stereo, and bidirectional. And it has a sensitivity of minus 36 dB, plus minus 3 dB at 1 kilohertz, and a signal to noise ratio of 140 dB. Then a bitrate of 16-bit or 40 or 24-bit is supported. Sampling frequency goes from 44.1 kilohertz up to 192 kilohertz. Then when we use it as analog, so with the XLR, it requires a 48 volt phantom power, which you usually get from the mixer. So you need a mixer that can supply it, but it's quite standard. And yeah, you have different gain settings, 0 dB, 10 dB, 20 dB, and 30 dB. And yeah, the cables included USB-A, USB-C, and then the XLR cable. So yeah, after this little talk, I've now already switched it through. So you always saw it in the upper left or right. I'm not sure where I place it. If I was talking, or if you listen to the Saramonic, to the DJI, or to the processed versions of the two. And yeah, hopefully you noticed a difference. And yeah, let me just know what sounded the best. Okay, so far so good. Now we're gonna look at some of the settings I'm doing. Okay, now here, once I've brought over the audio into Davinci Resolve, I bring it into the timeline. The first thing I have to do usually is increase the volume here by 15 dB. So even though I have the gain setting at plus 10 for the Saramonic audio, it's still quite silent. So I can easily bring up the volume here because of the high signal to noise ratio. So there will be no noise visible even if I bring it up that much. And by the way, I typically had to also crank up the volume for the DJI mic in a similar fashion, also plus 15 dB. So yeah, that's quite typical. The only difference is that for the DJI mic, I usually would notice some noise earlier as I do for the Saramonic. Okay, that's all I do here. Rest of the audio processing is done in Fairlight. So let's go over and I show you what I do. So here in Fairlight, I have different tracks. So for example, here Saramonic, the setup here in the office, I use this track with specific settings. Then we have Vlog DJI, which has the settings a little different because, as I said, the clarity of the DJI is different to what I get out of the Saramonic. So I have to do a different processing in the equalizer. And then also we have the Vlog DJI outside because there I need to do less cutting of frequencies because usually don't have echo there. The first thing I have a de-esser filter. So just to bring down some of the higher frequencies here. I then have the Clarity VX. That's a plugin I got. It's from Waves Audio, and what it does, it reduces reverb. So even if you're in an echoey room, this helps a bit. But as you can hear now, since I don't have the blanket behind me, it's also not getting the audio perfect. If I want perfect audio, I have to soundproof my room. So you can use those plugins, but yeah, they don't make the audio perfect. What I also have here is a limiter. First, I bring up the input level by 6 dB and I limit the ceiling. Why I do that is to get a good audio for YouTube. So here I have some settings and I learned that for YouTube, usually minus 14 LUFS is what would be the perfect audio level. The ceiling here, I don't want to go above 1.5 or minus 1.5, so I don't cut anything. So that's why I have this limiter setting, just trying to bring up the audio, but at the same time limit it so I don't get distortions. Then the most important settings are, for one thing, the compressor. So down here, the dynamics. And yeah, what I do is having a threshold at around minus 22 dB, 2:1 ratio. And the goal is that I see when I play the audio, some gain reduction between -3 and -5 here. And then I add a makeup of +4 to equalize it out. This also helps with this integrated reading here so that the average loudness of the track gets closer to what YouTube requires. Also, a very important setting, maybe the most important here, is the equalizer, and here I applied a low cut, and then I filter out some specific frequency which sound a little strange, so this also improves the audio. I have a slight high cut here, so just the very high frequencies which are usually not part of the human voice, so also cut those out. I think this is a pretty typical setting for the equalizer you would do, and where you put those is largely dependent on your setup. And by the way, for the DJI, this looks similar. So let's have a look. Just here, we're raising the higher frequencies to add in a bit more clarity. So that's the major difference here. Also, we have dynamics. We have the clarity, reverb, filter, limiter, DSS. So settings are very similar except for the equalizer, which is a bit different. Okay, so let me know if this is okay or if it's crap, and give me tips how I could further improve it. As I said, now I don't have the blanket behind me, so you would usually hear a bit more reverb. Yeah, and that's the end of the video. Hope you liked it. Leave comments what audio sounded the best. Also interested what you think of my processing, how I can improve it. If you know a bit about audio processing, just give me tips. I really want to learn. This microphone here, it costs $300. So it's not one of the cheapest, which cost mostly around $100 US, but it's also, again, cheaper than the really expensive ones, which start at $600–700. So those condenser microphones, which are used in professional setups, usually also require a mixer. So this one here sits somewhere in the middle, comes with a lot of features, very good build quality, and also the sound quality is very good. The noise is not noticeable, so you can do a lot with the audio. And yeah, you listen to it. Now you can decide for yourself if this is something for you. If you liked the video, leave a thumbs up, and yeah, see you in the next one. Bye.